It is heating up outside, as are gas prices here in recent weeks. Good afternoon to you. Thanks for joining us here on Action News Now. I'm Josh Croup. A couple of factors going into this equation that are sending the gas prices up here across the region. We're going to dive into what that means for you moving forward in the months ahead. Remember last year when we were paying north of $5 a gallon? Will we see that again? Will we get a repeat performance? We will break all that down with one of the nation's foremost experts on gas prices. Let us know in the comments below if you're watching here on Facebook. A, where you're watching from, but B, how much you had to pay the last time you filled up. What is the current price of gas where you are? Right now, if you're in the state of Ohio, it's an average of $3.64. Nationally, sitting at $3.62 here on this Wednesday. If we take a closer look at Northwest Ohio, Lucas County is sitting a little bit higher than that at $3.67. Ottawa County is at $3.68. Look how things have trended over the past year and a half or so. You can see where the war in Russia began right here, whenever gas prices really went soaring, hitting the $5 mark. We compare this to 1 year ago, though. Prices are sitting cheaper. We're up about 20 cents over the past couple of weeks. We are down about 20 cents compared to where we were this time last year here in the state of Ohio. In the Toledo area, last year, you may remember in September, there was an explosion, a fire at the BP Husky refinery in Oregon, now known as the Cenovus refinery under new ownership. After that fire, prices in the Toledo area went up higher than what we had seen in the entire state. You can see that movement right about here. The red line is Toledo, the blue line is Ohio. Prices here stayed elevated compared to the rest of the state for the back end of the year. Things have since pretty much stabilized in terms of Toledo being on par with Ohio's average. That refinery is slated to come back fully online here within the next month or two. How is that going to impact things at the pump? That's something else we're going to dive into as we bring in one of the foremost experts on this subject. Let's bring in Patrick DeHaan, head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy. It just set the stage for us right now as we have seen prices rise here steadily over the past couple of weeks. Where are things trending as temperatures continue to warm up here and we get into the warmer summer months?
Well, we're in the seasonality of gasoline. Prices have continued to inch up here. Most noticeably here in the last couple of days, as prices at a lot of stations shot up to about $3.75 a gallon. The average price still about $3.64, but with most stations having gone up, I do expect the average to continue inching higher. That's about a 17-cent jump from a week ago. Oil prices have been jumping as well. OPEC last week shocked markets by announcing a surprise production cut of over 1 million barrels. The price of oil is now up 25% from where it was a month ago. We're also starting the transition, or well into the transition, to summer gasoline. And as temperatures are warming up, Americans are getting out more and demand for gasoline is up. All of those factors pushing prices up.
We all remember the $5 a gallon nightmare that we had to go through last summer. That is not expected to happen this year, at least as things currently stand. Is that correct?
That's right. I would not expect those $5 prices to repeat themselves, although if any major refinery issues develop, it's not impossible. I would say that the odds are extremely long shot at this point. Now, we could hit the $4 a gallon mark by the time that we see prices peak, which could happen between mid-May and mid-June. But I don't think $5 is really in the cards this year.
You mentioned refineries. I'll ask you about the Toledo refinery that's owned by Cenovus, now formerly known to people here as the BP Husky refinery in Oregon. Had a fatal fire, an explosion last year. It has been shut down ever since, but Cenovus expects it to open up fully again by mid-second quarter. Maybe that's May or a little bit later. We saw a little bit of a bump here in just the Toledo metro area after that plant did shut down. What kind of an impact could that refinery coming back online have on prices in this region?
Well, it certainly could lead to some moderate price relief. I would note that much of that gasoline does end up in the state of Ohio, and without that Cenovus facility, supply has been a little bit tighter. And that's pushed prices up a little bit more in Ohio than your other neighbors. And so seeing that refinery come back online in time for summer would be certainly very good news that could help limit increases or even push prices down.
What about diesel? Where are things trending on that front? That's a real driver of the economy here as we see inflation numbers get a little bit better. Where do things stand on the diesel front?
Well, diesel prices have come down considerably over the course of the winter thanks to warmer than expected weather, which limits heating oil consumption. Heating oil and diesel are essentially the same product. So we've seen a lot of improvement there. Diesel prices have continued to come down, even as gasoline prices have gone up. And that's the good news. The national average for diesel, about $4.15 a gallon, it has been inching down. In fact, the most common price now across the country for diesel is $3.99. So a lot of improvement for the price of diesel. Some stations back under $4 for diesel, not all of them, but I would expect continued relief for the price of diesel, and that should help cool off some of the inflation numbers as well.
What numbers are going to be most accurate to read where prices are trending as we move through these summer months? Because that gap is going to be sizable when we look year to year in May and June, as we remember how high prices were last year. Not expected to go that high again. So would you look at month to month, week to week? What are you going to be looking at to assess where prices are trending?
Well, where prices are trending, I would expect them, again, $4 is not a foregone conclusion. It's possible, but that could mean that the year-on-year comparison is going to be down 50 cents to $1 a gallon. I would expect nowhere near the record prices that we faced last year as the economy is starting to cool off. I think the Federal Reserve raising interest rates is slowing consumption down enough to the point where record prices are not expected this year. But again, you look at the inflation numbers, which compare this year to last year. Gasoline prices are still about 50 cents lower this year than last year, at least on the national level. In Toledo, prices only down a modest 20 cents from a year ago. But last year, prices started spiking significantly in May and June. And for anyone that looks at year ago data, including the CPI numbers, the gap is going to grow in May and June. That is, the year-on-year gap is going to widen significantly. I don't expect prices to go up nearly as sharp this May and June as they did last year.
And so I think with that, you could probably forecast that certain politicians are going to take credit for gas prices being down X number of dollars compared to a year ago. You would advise people to take those statements with a grain of salt, though.
I think politicians will be salivating on any point they can make on either side of the aisle. But again, this is simply improvements in supply and demand. That's what makes the world go round. Politicians don't control everything. So absolutely right. A lot of the reason why prices went up was Russia's war in Ukraine, exacerbated by a lack of refining capacity. And now as the economy is cooling off, we're seeing demand go down. In addition, we're also seeing an increase in capacity, not just in the U.S., but overseas as well, where new refineries are coming online. All of that is going to help ease the overall price of gasoline, basically balancing supply and demand more closely compared to what we saw last year.
Great. Patrick, appreciate the time as always, sir. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Patrick Tahan, the head of petroleum analysis at Gas Buddy, joining us on Action News Now to break all of that down. On 13abc.com right now, we're detailing today's U.S. Consumer Price Index report showing how much prices for everything have gone up or down over the past year. Inflation cooling. Right now, year over year, we're seeing signs that there has been some relief led by gas prices. And one noteworthy thing that you heard him say is that diesel prices coming down really could be the thing that helps impact the entirety of the economy when it comes to inflation. This will be our big story today on Action News at 4:30. Much more coverage of this story and the day's local headlines coming up on Action News starting at 4 o'clock. Until then, I'm Josh Croup saying farewell from Toledo.